Hi, this is Amy Romeo from the jewelry making and craft blog amyromeo.com, and on this channel I like to share fun and easy jewelry making and craft projects. I've been making a lot of summer keychains using faux leather, heat transfer vinyl, and my Cricut lately, and this is a really fun one I'm excited to share with you today. I designed a summer bicycle with some flowers in the bike basket, and I can't wait to show you step by step how to make this using your Cricut cutting machine. So if you're ready to learn how to make this project, let's dive in and get started. Let's go over the tools and materials I'll be using to make this faux leather summer bicycle keychain. I'll be using my Cricut Maker, but you could also use the Maker 3, the Explore Air 2, the Explore 3, or the Cricut Joy, because all 5 machines come standard with the fine point blade, and that's what I recommend using to cut faux leather. I'll share more about the cut settings with you when we get to cutting out the material. I'll use the purple strong grip mat to cut the faux leather and the green standard grip mat to cut the heat transfer vinyl. If you're using the Cricut Joy, the Joy only has a green mat, so you'll use that mat to cut both materials. The faux leather that I'm using a light colored base, so I'm using some white faux leather. It's available in rolls. This one's from Amazon. It's also available in sheets, so it's really up to you. I'll link to these materials and all the materials I'm using in the description box for you. And then for the heat transfer vinyl, I'll be using a combination of some foil iron-on, some regular solid color heat transfer vinyl, and some glitter heat transfer vinyl. You can use any colors or finishes you'd like for this project. To press the heat transfer vinyl onto the faux leather, I'll be using my Easy Press Mini from Cricut on the low setting. You could also use a regular Easy Press set to 265 degrees. You could even use a traditional heat press, but you'll want to practice a couple times to make sure you're getting a good amount of pressure so the vinyl sticks to the faux leather, but it's not too much pressure where you flatten out your faux leather. I'll be using some blue painter's tape to tape the faux leather down to the purple strong grip mat. That will help me get nice cuts. I'll use some craft scissors, some weeding tools. You can use a hook or a pin pen, something like that. To glue the keychain together, I'll be using some Fabri-Tac glue, but you could use any good fabric glue or even a really good craft glue like Barely Art. That's another good one that I like to use. And when I'm heat pressing, I'll use a little piece of Teflon sheet that I've trimmed down to size, like as a cover sheet. You can also use parchment paper or butcher paper. And I'll be using a heat pressing pad to protect my surface. Then the key rings I'll be using are these 1 1/4 inch keychains. These are from Amazon. They're just regular split rings. I like this size. You can get them in a silver finish or a gold finish. And then you can also add an optional tassel. These are faux suede tassels that I get on Amazon. They come in all different lengths, and they also come in different metal colors for the top. So I'll be using a silver keyring for this project, and so I'll be using a silver topped tassel as well, and then just a regular jump ring to attach the tassel to the keychain. So let's go ahead, let me show you how to grab the SVG that I've created for this project, and then we'll hop into Cricut Design Space and we'll start to prepare the mats, get them cut out, and then I'll show you how to assemble the keychain from start to finish. So to make this project, you'll want to get the SVG for the keychain from my SVG shop. I have hundreds of SVGs in my shop for keychains and earrings. At the time I'm recording this, I don't have the SVG for this project in my shop yet, but by the time you're watching this video, it will be there. You can click on the link here on the screen or get the link in the description. It'll bring you to a product page, just like my taco earrings SVG, and you'll see that you can either choose a personal use version or you can choose a small commercial use version, which gives you a commercial use license to sell physical products made from my designs. Then you'll check out and you'll receive an email and you will download the SVG folder. The folder will be zipped and you will need to unzip it before you can upload the unzipped SVG file to Cricut Design Space. So in Cricut Design Space, I'm starting with a blank canvas, and then I'm going to click on Upload, and then Upload Image, and you want to browse to where your unzipped SVG file is for this project. I already have mine uploaded here. It's in my recent uploads row, So I'll click on it to select it and then click Add to Canvas. And then you'll see the SVG for this project on your canvas. Let me zoom in a tiny bit so we can see it a little better. And you can see on the layers panel here, all of the various layers separated out by color. So the sort of light gray layer on the bottom is going to cut from faux leather, and then all the other layers are going to cut from different colors and types of heat transfer vinyl. This is where you can really customize this design and make it look however you want to. I will be using white faux leather for the bottom, but you could use any color you wanted. And you can also change the color of your flowers, the color of the bicycle frame. It's really up to you. So I'm not going to adjust the size on this keychain. It's 3 inches wide, but it's very detailed, so you don't want to make it too much smaller. But if you were cutting on the Cricut Joy, then you may need to drag this shape a little bit smaller so that it will fit on the Joy size cutting mat. Looking at it here, I'm thinking it would fit, but just in case you're using the Joy and when you load it onto your mat preview it doesn't fit, just adjust that size as small as you need to get it to fit on the mat. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Make It button because I don't need to make any adjustments here on this screen. I'm loading my materials on a mat. And Design Space will break this project down into all of the various mats. So you can see there are 7 mats in this project. The first one is the faux leather layer and the rest are all heat transfer vinyl. So the first thing I want to do is go through and click mirror on each of the mats because faux leather and heat transfer vinyl cut in reverse. They cut face down. Now, if you wanted to use permanent vinyl for this project instead of heat transfer vinyl, you could. Then in that case, you would not mirror the vinyl mats. You would only mirror the faux leather mat. So let me just go through, click on each one, click on mirror. And once I have those all finished, I'll go back up to my faux leather mat. And what I want to do is just drag my faux leather shape a little bit away from the edge of the mat because the little wheels that roll the mat through are going to go over this material. And I just want to sort of keep my faux leather out of the way of those little track lines. Then I'll click on each of these vinyl mats. And what I want to do again is drag them a little bit away from the edges and then sort of drag them apart from each other. So these are the spokes of the bicycle, and the way I have them connected in Design Space so that when you cut this vinyl and you weed it out, you'll be able to place both of the bicycle spokes at once in the perfect location instead of placing them one at a time. And I've done that for each of the layers here. So here's the bicycle tire. Again, I'm just dragging them apart from the edges and dragging them apart from each other a little bit. And just repeat that for each of these mats. So once I've done that for each mat, I will return to the faux leather mat and click on that because I like to cut that one first. And then I'll click continue. Then we're just going to make our material settings for each of the different mats. So I'll start with the faux leather mat, and I like to use this faux leather paper thin setting. I have it bookmarked here, but if you don't use this setting or you haven't used it before, you can find it by clicking on Browse All Materials and searching for it. If you're using the Explore Air 2, you'll want to turn your dial to custom before you try and search for this setting. So I like to use the faux leather paper thin setting, and I always use more pressure. And then after we cut this faux leather mat, then we'll return to Design Space and we'll just start cutting each of these mats one at a time using the material setting that corresponds to the material that you've chosen for each of your mats. So for the mats that I'm going to cut from foil iron-on, I'll use the foil iron-on setting with default pressure. For the regular heat transfer vinyl mats, I will use vinyl with default pressure. And then for my glitter vinyl mats, I'll use the glitter vinyl setting with default pressure. And because I'm using a thicker Caesar glitter heat transfer vinyl, I will repeat the cut one time. So let's go ahead and get our faux leather mat cut out with the faux leather paper thin setting with more pressure. And then we'll return and we'll cut the rest of our mats. So I've gone ahead and trimmed my white faux leather down to a smaller size. And how I got this size was by looking at the map preview screen in Cricut Design Space, and I saw what size material I needed to cut so that my shape would cut out with a little bit of space on the edges. And you can see the little grid lines on your mat. That corresponds with the grid lines that you see in Design Space. So I was able to just count over that it was about 4 inches wide and about 5 inches long was a rectangle that fit my shape inside. So that's how I got this size. So I'm going to put this pretty side down on my purple mat in the top corner, which is where my shapes are placed in Design Space on that map preview screen. And then I'm just going to use some pieces of blue painter's tape to tape my material down on all sides. So I use blue painter's tape to tape faux leather down to the mat. It's better than masking tape, for example, which can leave some residue on your mat. You could also use something like washi tape, but this is an important step to help get nice cuts from your faux leather. I also like to reuse these pieces, so when I'm done cutting, I'll carefully peel up the blue painter's tape so I can use it again. So I've got my faux leather pretty side down on the mat. The mat setting is all set to go. I'm using the cut setting faux leather paper thin with more pressure. So we'll load this into the Cricut and begin the cut. So the Cricut has cut the mat one time. What I always like to do before I unload the mat is use my sharp weeding tool and sort of get underneath the cut to see if it went all the way through. And I do that because if the cut didn't go all the way through, it's very easy to repeat the cut as long as I haven't unloaded the mat. So this one actually looks pretty good. Basically, you're just lifting up and seeing if it lifts up cleanly or if the faux leather sort of seems stuck to the bottom. If it does seem stuck or you want to repeat the cut, which happens very often in faux leather, then you would just press the cut button again as long as you haven't unloaded the mat. On the Joy, you would press the rerun button, which is on the screen in Design Space. But this seems to have cut pretty well, so I'll go ahead and unload the mat. And then I will carefully pull my shape up off of the mat. There we go. And then this is a good way to see this is a fold over keychain. So it just folds over like that, and then the little key ring fits right in here. And then you have a little summer bicycle. Okay, so let's set that to the side. Now I'm going to return to Design Space. I'm going to click on every single mat, these 6 vinyl mats that are remaining, and I'm going to cut them out from all the different colors of heat transfer vinyl. I will weed away the excess vinyl so that when we're ready to press, I can show you the bottom layer and then the order that we press each of the vinyl layers, and you can see how we put the keychain together. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that, and I'll see you when I have all of the layers weeded and cut and on my mat ready to press. So I've cut out all the vinyl mats and weeded away the excess vinyl, and I've also cut the shapes apart so that I have one layer for each half of the keychain. And it's important on some of these layers that you don't cut all of the little shapes apart from each other. In Design Space, you could see that I could drag on each one of these sort of groupings and drag it around. That's because I've attached these shapes for you in my design, so that when you cut it out and you weed it and you press this one layer, you're pressing all of these shapes into the exact location at once. So basically you just want to be sure that if you're cutting both halves of the keychain together on your mat like I did, you'll want to cut each half apart from each other, but don't trim apart all these individual little shapes. So here for the spokes, I have the spokes for one of the bicycles, and the spokes for the other set of the bicycles, but they're still connected. So when I place them down, they're going to be in perfect position. So I did that. I cut and trimmed apart all of my vinyl shapes from each other. And I also have my Easy Press Mini set on low. It's just that first line and it's ready to go. And I want to attach my keyring now before I press all of our vinyl layers. And that's so that I'm not struggling later to try and thread the little faux leather piece here onto the split ring. So to do that, I'm just going to roll up the little faux leather, one half of the bicycle, and slide on my keyring now. And then what I want to do is sort of just move it out of the way so that I can press onto this bottom bicycle, and then I'll just flip it back when I want to press on this side. So on my blog for this project, I have a written tutorial with a graphic called a layering guide, and it will show you in which order to press all of these shapes if you need a little reminder when you're watching this video. So I know that my little spokes are going to be pressed first, but before I press this down, because there are so many layers to this project, I want to do what's called a dry fit. I basically want to layer some of the main elements on top of each other to make sure that I'm pressing the first layer in the right place, because the first layer dictates where you press all the other pieces. So it's really important that we get these spokes in the right position. So I know that, and again, you can look at the layering guide to see there's a white border around the spokes in the tire. So that looks pretty good. And now we'll just match up the bike frame. And again, you can refer to a graphic to make sure we're kind of putting this in the right spot. And that actually looks pretty good. So I think I can go ahead, remove these top two layers, and feel confident that I know where the spokes are going to go, which will be the first layer that we press. So these are foil iron-on, and foil iron-on is a little bit tricky to press. If you're not super comfortable pressing onto faux leather yet, you might want to cut these spokes just from a solid gray heat transfer vinyl. That would be a little easier to weed and to press. But I've got that in place. I'm going to cover with my little piece of Teflon sheet. Remember, you could use parchment paper or butcher paper. And I'm just going to press for about 10 seconds on each side. So each layer that we press, we're going to very carefully peel back this cover sheet, but on the foil iron-on layer, it's extra important that we very slowly peel this back. Sometimes foil iron-on lifts, so I'm just trying to be very careful. This looks pretty good. There we go. And then what I want to do is just cover one more time and press for just a few seconds to really make sure that the foil iron-on is well adhered to the faux leather, and that looks really good. There we go. So now we'll go ahead and we will press our tire layer. Again, just carefully peel back the cover sheet. Now when you're using glitter heat transfer vinyl, sometimes you will get little specks of glitter that stick to the faux leather, and that's because the faux leather is hot and warm when you're pressing it. So just let your faux leather cool down, and then you can sort of flick off those little pieces of glitter if they're bothering you. So the next layer we're going to do is the bicycle frame. Now we'll add the layer with the basket, the seat, and the little tiny tire circles. Now if some of your little tire circles shifted when you were pressing, you can always lift it up with some small tweezers. I see one of my little tiny circles here moved. So I just know that I want it to go in that spot. I'm just going to lift it up off the cover sheet, set it into place. There we go. That looks good. Cover. That's looking pretty good so far. And now we want to add our flower bouquet to the basket. It's important with every press, you're covering your entire bicycle with the Teflon cover sheet, because even though we're only heat pressing this very small area, you don't want your heat press to touch areas you've already pressed or touch the faux leather directly. There we go. And now we'll press our little flower circles as our last layer. And there we go. There's our first side of the bicycle keychain. So what I'm going to do next is just flip this over, move my keyring out of the way, and I'm going to press the other side. And then I will show you next how to glue this, and I'll show you my special trick for making sure that the keychain is really nice and flat, and how you get an almost seamless edge when you glue these fold over keychains. So I finished pressing both halves of the little bicycle keychain, and now I'm ready to glue. So I told you I have a little trick for getting these keychains to glue together really nicely, and it's not so much about the glue that I use, although having a good fabric glue is important. It's really about pressing the glued keychain under something heavy like a book for several hours, and that'll get it really nice and flat. So let me go ahead and turn this over, and I'll show you with my glue. You want to have your book handy. Make sure your keychain is moved out of the way. And we aren't going to get any glue on this little bridge part so that the keyring can move freely. But with the glue, I'm going to just glue all on the back of one side. And you want to get it kind of close to the edge, but not so close that it seeps out. And because we do that, because when we press this over and fold it over and press the two halves together, that glue will naturally seep to the edges a little bit. So we want it to seep to the edges, but not out of the edges. So just kind of get that glue everywhere. Keeping the keyring out of the way, I'm going to fold this over. And you want to just match up both sides. I'll pick it up. Kind of get these sides lined up. It's not gonna hold together firmly at the edges yet. The edges are going to be a little separated, and that's okay. Just try to get them lined up so when you're looking at one side, you don't see the back side sort of shifted. There we go. If you do get some glue seepage out the side, it's no problem. See, I've got some right there. Just kind of wipe it away with your finger or with a damp cloth. That looks pretty good. So what we're going to do is place it here. And I'm going to press my heavy book. I'm going to press the book up as far as I can, leaving that keychain out. And then the next thing I'm going to do is get my 9x9 Easy Press, which is heavy. It's turned off. It's not even plugged in. And I'm going to set this on top too. There we go. It's not on. It's not plugged in. We're just using it as an extra heavy weight. In about 30 minutes, I'll remove this and I'll check just to see if there's any glue seepage that I can wipe away while it's still damp. And then I'm going to let it dry for several hours. And then we'll come back and I'll show you the glued keychain, and I'll show you quickly how to attach that little fun faux leather tassel. Okay, so the keychain has been drying for a few hours. Normally I like to let them dry even longer, like even overnight is best, but I do want to show it to you. So I'm going to go ahead and move my Easy Press that I was just using as a weight off to the side. And I'll move my book, and you can see how cute the keychain looks, and I hope you can see how nicely that the edges are sealed because we press this under the book. It's almost seamless, which is really cool. Now if there are any little tiny spots, like right here I see there's a little gap, then I could use a glue that has a precision tip, like the Barely Art glue is great, where you can get in there with a really small area. And again, just glue it right in that gap and press it under the book again. But let me go ahead and show you how to attach the keychain tassel. Again, totally optional, but I'm going to get one of my little jump rings. This is an 8mm size jump ring, and you could use an 8 or a 10 or a 12. That's probably best. And then let's see, we've got a whole bunch of little keychains in here. I might go with a cute pink one. Let's see. Yes, I like that. So this is really easy to do. We're just going to use our flat nose jewelry making pliers to open up the jump ring. I like to use 2 pliers to open jump rings, but you could also use, sometimes your jump rings will come with this little ring that you fit on your finger, and it has little slits that you can use to put the jump ring in, and it helps you twist. But I'm going to go ahead and use 2 pliers. Just open, put on the tassel, put it on the key ring, and close it back up again. And there we go. The little Summer Bicycle Keychain is complete. I hope you enjoyed this project and you're going to make a summer bicycle keychain yourself using your Cricut. Let me know in the comments what colors you're gonna do. My bike was teal with some bright pink flowers in the basket. I would love to know what color combination you're going to choose. If you like this project, as I mentioned, I have so many more summer keychain tutorials I've been doing with my Cricut. Just keep watching and the playlist will start for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.